Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're covering the Canoptek Plasmacyte from the Necron Codex. So I wasn't sure if this one warranted a video or not, but we've gone with it anyway. It may be a short one, we'll have to see. So this is a little robotic snail looking thing that can be taken with destroy occult units. It's only 1 power level or 15 points. So it has a feel of an added ability rather than an actual model. So let's get stuck into the datasheet, starting off with the keywords of note. It's got the Dynasty keyword, it's a Canoptek unit, it's got the Beast keyword, and it can fly. Stat wise, it's got movement of 8 inch, weapon skill 4+, ballistic skill 4+, strength 4, toughness 5, wounds 1, attacks 1, leadership 10, and a 4+ save. Surprisingly tough with toughness 5, but everything else is between average and poor. So abilities, let's get the more commonly known ones out of the way. Command protocols to interact with the set buffs for each battle round. You've got dimensional translocation for the ability to deep strike. Then it has evasive protocol, which means it simply can't be targeted by a ranged attack while within 3 inches of a destroy occult unit unless it's the closest eligible unit. Next, it's got recall protocol, which is if the unit is not within 6 inches of a destroy occult unit, then it is simply destroyed. So if you lose your destroy unit, then this thing's also gone. Viral construct, which is an ability where the Plasmacyte won't take up a battlefield role in the detachment, providing that you've got a destroy occult unit within your list. So if you want 2 Plasmacytes, then you're going to need to take 2 destroy occult units. If you do take more, it'll take up an elite slot, although you're not really going to have any reason to take one without a destroy occult unit, because they'll instantly be destroyed. Infused Madness is next, which is really the only reason you've got this thing. Once per turn, in either the charge phase or the fight phase, you select a destroy occult unit within 3 inches of your Plasmacyte model. You roll a d6 for the unit, and on a 1, a single model from that unit is destroyed, which really sucks if you do roll that 1, because it can't be re-rolled. Then, regardless of the result, all models in the unit get a +1 to their strength and +1 to their attacks characteristics for the rest of the turn. Now you can't stack this with multiple Plasmacytes, so your friendly unit can only be a target of this buff once per turn. So there is a line in the ability that is quite subtle but extremely key, which is you've got the option of using it in the charge phase or the fight phase. Now there is a pro and a con to both, but you need to understand them. So doing it in the charge phase means you're guaranteeing the buff, because when your destroy occult unit charges in, it might not be within 3 inches anymore, especially if your Plasmacyte can't follow up and also make their charge, because they have to charge separately of course. Then it's potentially going to be out of unit coherency in the morale phase, which then means it'll be destroyed. Also, if it's not within 3 inches in the fight phase and you've yet to use the ability, you could daisy chain your destroyers to keep coherency, but then you're likely losing a lot of attacks, as some models won't be in engagement range of other enemy models. The only reason to use it within the fight phase itself is because if you do roll a 1 and kill off one of your own models, it may mess up your charge range, or perhaps you need all the models for a multi-charge, but the majority of the time use it in the charge phase. So as this is the main bulk of the video, we should put the detail into this part, which will sort of also cover the unit synergy area of the review at the same time as it relates to destroy occults. So the destroy occult units in the Codex are the Scorpet destroyers, the Hexmark destroyers, the Ophidian destroyers, and the Locust destroyers, and then if you wanted to separate the heavy Locust destroyers you can do. In fact, you can even use it with the Scorpet Lord and a Locust Lord, but I probably wouldn't chance rolling that 1 on those. So going alphabetically, the Hexmark destroyers. Now these guys have 4 attacks each that are strength 5, there's no AP and 1 damage, as they don't technically have a combat weapon. They're not really built for melee. So with a Plasmacyte you could in theory roll a d6, hope to not roll any 1s, otherwise that Hexmark is long gone from this world, but then he'll have 5 attacks that are strength 6. Now I'm not going to do a breakdown for this one, as you're never going to really use it with a shooty destroyer unit, but the option is available. While on the subject of a Hexmark destroyer, both the Hexmark and the Plasmacyte can deep strike. For a total of 90 points you can use the pair to score Line Breaker, as you require 2 units in your enemy's deployment zone, and this is 2 units that go in together at the same time. So maybe try and hide them in a corner or something. Not only are they scoring 4 victory points per turn, but your opponent will have to sacrifice firepower or a melee unit just to deal with the 2 models, and if they're behind some sort of terrain, even better. The Locust destroyers and the heavy Locust destroyers are also shooty, so again it's not worth doing a breakdown, but just note that using the Plasmacyte's ability will take their 2 strength 4 attacks to 3 attacks each that are strength 5, but they shouldn't really be in combat, and I don't recommend using them in combat. So onto the 2 more melee based units, you've got the Ophidian destroyers and the Scorpet destroyers. Now the Ophidian destroyers can tunnel up from turn 2 onwards, which is the equivalent of deep striking, so they can come in with your Plasmacyte. Now these can be taken in units of up to 6. The Scorpet destroyers need to go on foot, but they're still pretty quick with an 8-inch movement, and there's always a stratagem for that -1 to wound for a bit of protection. Now for the weapons breakdown, they've got multiple weapons, so we need to go through each of them here. Using a min unit of 3 for simplicity, they've got 3 attacks each. Now one of the destroyers will have a hyperphase Reap Blade, and the other 2 will have a hyperphase Threshers, which also grant an extra attack. If you're only looking at the Ophidian destroyers, they've also got their Ophidian claws, which are another 2 attacks each. So the Reap Blades, they're the stronger of the 2 weapons. They start at strength 6, but will increase to strength 7 with the Plasmacyte. The Threshers and the Claws are strength 4, so will improve to strength 5. So after bumping up all the strength characteristics, they also need 1 attack extra each. So to summarise, because you can get a little bit lost here, the Reap Blade model now has 4 attacks with the blades at strength 7. The Thresher models will now have a total of 8 attacks at strength 5. And again, add the 6 claw attacks that are now strength 5. So basically they get a boatload of attacks which are now much stronger. It'll be easier if I show you a table of what they previously could do on average versus what they can do now on average with the Plasmacyte's power, basing this on a max unit of 6, so I'm showing you the max potential here. So going against, say, Guardians, for example, without the Plasmacyte, Ophidian Destroyers will kill 15.4 models, and with the Plasmacyte it increases to 18.4. Going against Space Marine Intercessors, without the Plasmacyte is 7 models that are going to die, whereas with the Plasmacyte it's 11.3 on average. When you're doing it with Terminators, without the Plasmacyte it's 3.4. And when you add the ability, it's 5.6 dead models. Then finally, when you're damaging a Toughness 7 vehicle with a 3+ armor save without a Plasmacyte, you're doing roughly 11.2 damage with the entire unit. And if you add the Plasmacyte, it's 16.7. So quite a lot of damage there. If you look at the Scorpet Destroyers, because they've got a higher base strength of strength 5, so their figures slightly change. However, they don't have the claws. So the Dead Guardian count, you've got 11 without the Plasmacyte and it goes up to 16. Dead Intercessors, you start off with 7 and it goes up to 11. Dead Terminators, you're going to have 3. And with the Plasmacyte, it will be 5. Then finally on that Toughness 7 vehicle with a 3+ armor save, 11.9 damage. With the Plasmacyte, it's going to be 18.1. So that's a max unit of 6 and the damage they produce in a single round of combat. Even if you were to lose a model due to rolling a 1, which would definitely happen time to time, then the damage increase alone will pay its points back, as long as you're fighting the bigger targets. The Destroyer models are 35 points each, and if you add the cost of a Canoptek Plasmacyte, that will give you a total of 50 points, so that's what you need to recover for a worst case scenario. So Guardians are 8 points each at base cost, so killing between 3 and 5 of them won't be worth it, you're not going to recover enough points. Intercessors are 20+ points depending on the variant, so killing 4 more on average is recouping around 80 points approximately, so in that case it is worth it. All types of Terminators can cost around 35 to 40 points, so you're easily getting your points back even if you just kill 2 of them. Then of course doing between 5 and 7 extra wounds on a vehicle could mean anything, as it depends on the vehicle, but at that point you just need to work out how important that vehicle is to your opponent and how much of an investment your opponent has put into it. There's also something else to consider. If you do unfortunately roll a 1 and lose a model, then the damage will be slightly less, as now it isn't 6 models that are fighting. So after all that, we need to briefly check out the actual Wargear on this little thing. So it's got the Monomonocular Proboscis. Damn, they make these things really hard to say. So it's a melee weapon that's strength user, so it's strength 4. It's also minus 1 AP and 1 damage. It's only got 1 attack, so don't expect the world from it, but we've got to cover it. So yeah, let's summarise this thing. So there's no point in discussing the dynasty buffs and stratagems and all that jazz, because those affect the actual Destroyer cult unit rather than the actual Plasmacyte itself, which we've already covered in their own reviews. So the question is this thing worth it? So we've kind of already actually answered it really. Pretty much all of the time, yes, it is worth it, as you can see from all those damage tables, as per a single fight phase as well. However, there is a slight flaw when using, say, the Ophidian Destroyers in particular, because they like to tunnel in more than 9 inches away from enemy units, and the Plasmacyte, as we already know, can deep strike in more than 9 inches away as well. And if those Ophidian Destroyers make their charge, but your Plasmacyte doesn't, then it's not going to be in coherency, so therefore it's going to be destroyed in the morale phase, unless of course you can somehow consolidate back into him, but it's a bit of a risk. Now don't get me wrong, if you actually use his ability in the charge phase, it could still be a pretty good sacrifice, because it could be the difference between killing 3 Terminators or killing 5, but it's something you need to bear in mind when you deep strike in. Going on foot is a much safer option, so that will include the Scorpet Destroyers in particular, unless they make some sort of outrageously long charge. But then to be honest, who cares if your Plasmacyte dies? You just got into combat a turn earlier and didn't get shot at. So for me, I'd preferably use it with the Scorpet Destroyers on foot. Both move 8 inches anyway, so it's not too bad. So one other bit of advice I can give with this thing is use the ability in the charge phase, then get a Plasmacyte to charge first, to either eat up the Overwatch or block an Overwatch if he successfully makes it in. Lastly, he also counts as a model for scoring points, such as holding objectives or simply having line breaker. He however cannot perform actions. So this rating is a bit of a weird one, as it only applies to certain units that can take a Plasmacyte. So presuming you take those said units, I think the Plasmacyte gets a Planet 40k rating of 4 out of 5. It sounds quite weird saying that, but it's only 15 points and it does a ton of extra damage every single fight phase. So guys, drop a like for more Necron content. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.